Welcome back to another episode of the Funeral Babe Podcast. I'm Alyssa, your host, funeral director, mortician, undertaker, Christina's best friend.
I'm Christina, and I need to go first so that
you got to put all your things behind your name.
Seriously. Let me go first next time. I'll introduce you. I'm the co-host here. And I'm here to talk about all the things that nobody wants to talk about with you.
Just two girls bullshitting about death and dying, like all the fun stuff.
Yeah, because who wouldn't want to hear and talk about that?
I met a group of girls last night at my adult gymnastics class, because I do that too. And whatever, they somehow found out about the TikTok, I was talking about the podcast. They were like, so what is it about? I was like, it's two girls, like super chill, just like bullshitting about death and dying, but like in a really happy way.
Well, it's so funny you said that, because I like listened to it, and it is so natural, and we do talk about it so often. I guess that's why we're so comfortable. But it's like we're like talking about like, oh, and then when Georgie died, and then my dad's funeral, like it's like a
because Kelly said the same thing to me, my cousin. She was like, you guys laugh. And I'm like, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. Yeah. So, it's you got to take the humor with it, which is actually really, I don't know if on point, but today I wanted to talk about a pretty big topic.
When is it not a big topic? I just want to...
Always big, always deep, always got us thinking, out of the box, 6 feet above the ground.
You're 5'5".
Pushing 5'5". Today, we are going to talk about legacy, okay? Legacy. And before we do, I want to share this quote with you because it's one of my favorite quotes. I don't even know who said it, but I read it once and it stuck with me for a lifetime. And that is, the goal was never to live forever. It was to create something that will.
Okay.
Really let that settle in, because I've also used that in the arrangement conference, like when I'm with families and stuff, that first phase of grief, and I, obviously there's nothing I could say to make it better, but one of the things I say is, the goal was to never live forever, like that's just one way to think of it, and it is to create something that will. And I think that is a big thought, especially when you just lose somebody, but also for ourselves.
Of course, absolutely. And I think you're right. Like, I don't think we think about that on a day-to-day. I feel like a lot of us doubt ourselves, things like that. And what is like, you want to, of course, leave behind something, but how often or do we really think about it or put the time and the effort into what you want to even
put? Yeah. What's your idea of leaving what you're leaving behind? And, legacy isn't, maybe it is to some people, maybe it's materialistic things, maybe it's, you're leaving behind your business, you're leaving behind your house, you're doing that. But in hindsight, like, what are you really, is that your legacy is just material things? Is it how people feel after they meet you? Is it a feeling? Is it a lesson? Legacy is not something that you just I feel like accomplish and you're done. It's what you do every single day. It's every little motion and interaction that you have is shaping your legacy. It's not just a one and done thing.
And it's also like, it doesn't really happen until after you die. That's when you start to think about it. So it's like, what do you want people saying about you at your funeral? How do you want people to remember you? Like, because you had all the nice things, or because you were that kind person? Or
I always say I never see anybody at a funeral being like, some people will be like, oh, they loved their boat or something, but it's never like, did you see all their cars? It was never about that. Like, it's always how they made them feel in a room, the lessons they learned, even when the stories are, from a stricter person per se, or like, not the same kind of, walked into the room, made everyone smile, but they were funny people. People leave a legacy behind. And I think it's, do we ever stop and look at what's the legacy you want to, like, what are you creating that you want to leave behind?
Yeah. And also I feel like there's like bad legacies
Of course there is.
Like there's,
that's your karmic death. You're just really giving it to your kids after that.
Yeah. But like, are you asking me personally?
Yeah, like, have you ever thought about your own legacy? Like what or do you?
No, because I'm sure if I did, I probably would have like, this is what I want. No. What do I,
What about, have you ever thought about or imagined your own funeral?
I really think that I am kind of like, I'm really lucky and fortunate because I don't have to worry about that, because that's your problem. Because you're going to do all that?
I'm thinking, like, have you ever thought about, like, have you ever imagined your own funeral in thought? Like, something happened and you were like, if I died today and it was my funeral, who's going to show up? Who would be there? What are they going to say about me? What pictures are they going to show? Do you ever think about it?
So I never think that deeply into it, but I think as a parent,
I'm unwell.
I think no. Well, yes.
I'm very unwell.
This is not
You're making
news.
it very clear publicly. Just want to say that.
For me, like, I definitely have like these terrible intrusive thoughts of like constantly like dying and leaving my kids without a mother. Like that definitely
That
crosses
sounds like
my
a
mind.
fear, girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds a little fearish.
It just happens. I don't, it's just like you get in the car and all of a sudden like the intrusive thoughts take over and it's like, if I get in this car right now and I don't come home, then, who's going to take my kids?
I mean, I'm sure they'll figure it out.
I understand that. It will get figured out, but that's what,
That's your worry.
That's really, I don't think about my
can't die.
funeral. It's more like, you gotta just, take precaution and stay alive for these kids.
I've thought about like my funeral, my friends' funerals, like, honestly, I guess I obviously have had to for certain purposes, but I remember one of my besties from high school, I would always say, like, Tatiana, she would just be she's such a driving force, like just a go-getter, like always going on travel, always doing things. And I would always say to her, I'd be like, listen, if you die, all right, can you just like tell Mama and Tata that I'm going to do the eulogy because it's going to be so good. And then we would
have all of our eulogies planned.
Like some of them. In my head, I didn't write it down. I don't know. Like maybe I should. They're probably good. And and I remember one night we were like all out, and she would always tell people the story too. And I would just like all of a sudden start giving her eulogy to like people in the room to be like tested out. And as I would do it, I would be like, to know Tatiana is to know that she lived so hard. Like she lived fearlessly, like and on all these things, because that's really what when I see her, that's what the way I felt. So to think about her own eulogy, like that I would give her, also showed so many things that like I deeply admire about her.
I was just going to say that. I love that so much. I feel like every person should write a eulogy about somebody in their life.
Like, go write eulogies about your friends.
Yeah, because
like,
I feel like again, like with funerals, that's what people are, all their emotions, their guilt or remorse, whatever. And like you hear a side of them and it's like, don't you want to kind of hear that too?
It's like what you really like. That's almost like a legacy for people.
Yeah.
Like what the energy they feed you or how they inspire you. Like that's part of a legacy. I don't think it only has to be actual objects or success or things or anything like that. Even like when I think about like my own parents' funerals, and this is something I genuinely think about it. It's something I have to think about. It's something that I know I'm going to have to do. It's something that it's the inevitable. And I would want to be prepared. And I always, have a plan in my head for what happens as time changes. And I think about the same thing about my parents. And when I have that time to reflect about them, it also gives me such a deep appreciation and admiration for my own parents in certain things when I try to think about their life. Like, when I put myself in my dad's shoes per se, and I think about how his life was from childhood, walking 5 blocks uphill in the snow to school,
no shoes, yes.
All that stuff. Like when you hear that story and the paper boy route and all these things, and you're just thinking like that was your life. You're living for the first time too. And like, but still look what you've created. Like I look at my sister, I look at myself, I look at different things. Like that's a legacy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Children are definitely a legacy, and you want
to raise them right.
Yeah, well, you want. I think all of us deep down, no matter how we portray it, we all want better for our kids than we had it. But I don't think everybody knows how to,
Well, then it's almost like I always get like into that thought of like you when you're navigating it, it's like that's what you thought how it was going to be isn't, and you have to figure that out. Like that's like So back to my legacy thought here and funerals. Have you maybe never thought about imagining your own funeral, like who would come and stuff like that? But what do you think a lot of people would come? Like I want to hear your thoughts. Like what do you want it to be like? Like what's your idea of a funeral? Like what would you plan for yourself? Like you got to tell me now because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Like what would you do?
What would I do? I would want it to be fun. Like, I wouldn't want it to be sadness. I would want it to be, fun. I really want, because I think I'm really clever when it comes to like texting and like quick answers and quick-witted. I want all my funniest text messages. Like, how people put the pictures Like a I want the funniest things I've ever.
So like instead of in lieu of flowers, send donations to, it'll be like in lieu of flowers, send a text message of screenshots that Christina said that are super
hilarious.
witty. We'll just have, but that's actually a really good idea. I love that. So you. Okay. Okay.
And the only other thing I think about, and the only reason why I know this is because I've watched your TikToks and because you've educated me, is the other-sided casket.
Oh, you want a reverse panel?
Do you want to know why, though?
Just to mess with people. Make it feel eerie in the room.
Do you want to know why, though?
Is that your better side?
No.
Okay.
I don't have a better side. It's all better.
You got me as your makeup artist.
Yeah, I am not
I don't know
worried.
if not hopefully, actually.
I'm telling you, I have to go first because I cannot, I don't want to, I mean,
Attend
I'm
my
sure you
funeral.
have your plans already set up, but like, I don't want to be responsible. I don't, like
Okay.
it's just, and you need to be responsible for mine. So
Understood.
that's it. But it's because I'm left-handed and because my whole life, everything's been a little off. Everything's been backwards my whole
that
life.
for you.
So I want that last feeling for everyone to be like,
this is what it's like to do
only,
lefty.
and only the left doors are allowed to be open. Because you know how many times I go to a store that has 2 doors and the left door is
Okay.
locked? So that's what I
I
want.
love the thought into this. That's a really
Just a petty way
You know
to
what?
go out.
Whenever I use a reverse panel casket, so you see the other side, everything at work. I've called you before, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going nuts. Everything is backwards. So like, even the way I move the casket, even the way I have to put the seat in the everything gets backwards, and you're like,
Try being
welcome to my life.
left-handed, yeah.
I know. Like, that's why we made everything righty. Really works for me. And now I don't even know if I know a left-handed funeral. I know there's left-handed funeral directors, but I wonder what it's like for them.
You just adjust. Like you don't have a choice.
Like it is what it is.
Yeah, everything is made for right-handed people, so you just kind of adjust.
Okay. All
and
right.
Figure it out.
So are you going to get buried or cremated?
I think buried.
Okay.
I think buried.
Do you want like, you think a bunch of people are going to come? Like you want, or do you want it to be like,
I don't really care. Like open it up.
Open
share
invite,
it. Yeah.
share it
do
on Facebook?
Do what you got to do.
Okay.
But
who's doing your eulogy?
whoever wants to. I definitely
I
think
do your
you. Yeah, I
eulogy?
definitely think
All
you
right,
should
we
be
can have
up there,
multiple. We can have
but,
multiple.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like I got some.
All right, well, multiple eulogies.
Yeah.
See, when I think of my funeral, I tell everybody at work all the time, like, if it's my time, and it kills them too, because it kills them, that's, no pun intended. They're all, like, much older than me. Like, there is a big age gap with me at work. So, like, I'm talking, like, one of my buddies is someone's grandfather.
Yeah.
Like, he is 75. Love him dearly, but, like, they're much older. So whenever we're at work and, like, we see different things that happen, I'm like, listen, guys, when it's me in there, they're like, what? Like, just in case it's me in there. So I always talk about my funeral with them. I guess I think about this too often. And I'm always like, I want everyone to come. Like, I hope that, like, I want to go to church, and I hope that they have to, like, televise it outside, like, waiting room only. Like, I don't know that many people, but, like, that's just what I want. And I want everyone to be super sad and mourn me, like the old days, for, like, a day. And then they can party after I'm in the ground. Like, then go to the cemetery, bury me, have, like,
You
a few
want
people
to be sad, and you're talking about how like we need to normalize and make that so real and like make it a comfortable thing, and then you want everyone to be sad for you.
Yes. I think it's because it's how I always imagined in my head. I'm going to end up living to like 110 and like no one's coming to my funeral. I'm going to get cremated. It's just how I pictured it, because to me it's like the most movie, like when people think of funerals, they think of like this just really sad scene. So like I just feel like it needs to live up to the myth of because usually now funerals, like everyone's chatting and catching up and things, like it's not the same. No. But then after the funeral, I want like a big party, and like where everyone like shares stories about how I made a difference for them, whether it was just a smile, like whatever made you show up to get this free meal, okay? Actually, honest confession, I said the other day, I was like, as I'm going through my 30s and trying to get my things and everything together, I was like, I just want to have enough money that when I do die, beyond my funeral expenses, I want to be able to pay for the big party after.
I like that.
Like it was an actual thought. Like I just want to make sure like that's there too. Like I want people to go celebrate and like
and on me.
Exactly. And I think that for me, like when I think about legacy, I think it is like just even if it's a short period on certain people, and that brings us back to one of like the first episodes we talked about. Even if it's a short time with somebody, that whatever impact you made, that lesson or a blessing, like I feel like that's all a part of your legacy, and what you do throughout your every single day and how you impact the world on a minute-to-minute basis is how people are going to remember you.
Yeah. So it's all in like choices that you make. Everything is a choice, and you could choose to, smile at the neighbor as you walk by and wave hi. You could just look the other way, or like all these.
Yeah, like you could just put your best foot forward, and like, or if that's not the legacy you want, listen. That brings me into like the next part of this that I wanted to get to is I've worked a lot of funerals, girl. Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot of legacies, and it's probably one of my favorite parts too of the job is that like I always say like I've met over 1,000 people in my life, but like I never not different name, different face, never had a conversation with them, but I got a nice overall like of their life from the family, from the funeral, in quick bursts. So it's like I say, like reading 1,000 books in a, like if you read 1,000 books, you live 1,000 lifetimes. I feel like working with the decedent sometimes is like reading 1,000 books in different lives and seeing different legacies. And not all of them are like these great ones either, where it's like, they lit, like I was saying earlier, like they lit up a room. Yeah. Some people are known for being hard workers, people who are, she was a feisty one, she would cut you at your knees, but like, and then you look at the life that they had led, she did have a legacy that she created, and her whole persona was, entangled within the family roots, which is part of a legacy.
Of course, yeah.
Like, right? And then there's like legacies of people, you were asking about this the other day, that's making me go into this, people who are not good people. Mm-hmm. Remember you asking me that? Yeah. You were like, what do people say and all of that? Yeah.
What's the worst like that you've heard?
Yeah, and like, luckily I think in most cases, 9 out of 10 times, maybe more than that, but like families obviously are mourning a loss, or, not necessarily mourning, sometimes it is a sense of relief because, people get old and their mind isn't there, their body isn't there, they're in pain. So people do have that sense of, closure as well. But there is people at the times that come in and those people were not loved. They weren't good people. And you get this basis of a story.
Does the family still show up? Do they still they pay for it? Like, how does that?
I've seen it in a lot of ways. Like I've seen it like bare minimum services, which is pretty, if somebody told me like, listen, like I can't stand this person, I could care less. Like I'd be like, do the cheapest bare minimum. So essentially like a direct cremation for, over here. Like that's what I would tell you to do. But I've seen too, where these people have had full funerals in a sense. So, I'll remember one story is just really, I guess like a heavy story too, is I did a funeral and it was a pre-funded, so it was already taken care of by the decedent. Okay. There was no visitation or anything, but it was going to church. It was going to be a burial, like full, nice cemetery. There was a casket. Everything was pre-done. And when he passed away, the family got in touch. And basically, we met with them briefly, but it was like a touch and go because everything was pre-done. Yeah, so there's really nothing. They didn't really seem to care on the phone. And I think a lot of times too, I've seen grief so many times and I've talked to people who are in those first stages of grief. I've seen people angry. I've seen people totally numb to it, like crying. Like, so somebody seeming not to care could also be like, I don't know, maybe they're just completely numbed out right now and they're just like, I have to do this. But I started to catch this kind of drift. Something was off, but I didn't know what it was. And I cared for this man like you would not believe. When I asked like, hey, do you want to bring in clothes? They said, no, you can just leave them in the clothes that they came in. And I felt like, for whatever reason, I was like, that's fine. But like, no, like, so I remember I washed the clothes, whatever, and I put them back on. And, I just knowing that nobody was going to see him and he was going to go to church and go to the cemetery and that was going to be the end of that, I was like, let me just make sure everything's perfect and, pay my respects and put a little smile on his face kind of thing, and made sure he's comfy, closed the casket. Long story short, by the time I'm wrapping up at the cemetery, I found out that man was just an absolutely horrible man. And it's something that makes you think, one, you think about like your morals and ethics. So like I always say, absolutely, I would have done it the same over and over again. But it was also going through this funeral and seeing that how the family reacted, being at the funeral, the eulogies that were spoken, they didn't necessarily depict a monster. that I was, informed of until after the fact. It was more of just how, they were taught to overcome things. And I'm not saying that that's like a good legacy to leave, but that's essentially the awful legacy that you left, is that, you tortured your family. Like that's what will be spoken about probably for years and years and years.
And the only thing we could hope is that they took that as a way to change and,
Well, that's where a lot of it was geared, and very, very beautiful and very inspirational. Like, this is where we rise above and stuff. But, everyone has their own stories and their own legacies. But I think that the deepest ones are the ones where people really care and people really love, and it's not the materialistic ones. What do you want your legacy to be now that we talked all about it?
I just, I want to be remembered for being a good person, for being,
funny, obviously.
Obviously, that's a given. But yeah, just, I want my kids to grow up to be good people, however that may look. Like, I just want to know that, like, like
they're going to continue doing good work in the world, and they will.
And and I'm really not worried. I think
your kids are angels. Yeah. You're fine. Like, you're going to be great there.
But thank you. But I think that is the most important for me right now. Maybe that'll change. Maybe I'll wake up tomorrow and be like, I'm going to leave behind something else. I don't know. I can't think.
You'll figure it out. I don't know what I ever thought my legacy would be, as I was getting older and stuff. I think that it was just different. I would say more of like survival in a lot of ways, and not in a horrible way, but even just like surviving, getting through college, having to get a job, having to, figuring out where your footing goes in life and becoming an adult. And then it wasn't until, with talking about death and ending up in death care, and like just as my life unfolds, it's like I feel like in anything and any impact that I want to leave as a legacy is people being able to talk about death and dying and their own mortality, and to really take a look, and I hope that in generations people could be like, hey, listen, like if you just talk about things and you try to understand things, it's not so mysterious, and death shows so much about life. And I think that's like the biggest kind of thing I want to get out there. And also that people remember me as being like super nice and super caring. But I feel like I hit the nail on the head on that all the time, so it's fine.
That's fine.
I'm like sweet Melissa all over again.
You are. But no, I think that you on your platform and what you're doing is incredible. And I think that you absolutely have opened the doors. And, I read through your comments often and just see how much of an impact you've had on these people, total strangers who just watch your video and feel connected to you because you are so open,
You're
honest,
so sweet.
raw. But it's just real. It's real.
No, I think that like hopefully that my nephews will like years to come, like they'll probably be like, yeah, my aunt was a mortician. Like just like you hear other people, like I meet people and they're like,
yeah, it's just a normal conversation.
So changing up the pace. But I think legacy is overall. I think that thinking about what you want to leave behind and what you do, it's not just, it's impactful in your life, and it gives your life a little bit more purpose and meaning. And it doesn't necessarily, and it's okay if it's objects or if it's career goals or no matter what it is, but if you really think about what you want to leave behind, I think that would be really eye-opening for a lot of people. And you think about how people are going to talk about you at your funeral, and what would people be saying, and what would the eulogies be, and what's going to matter versus what doesn't. It's something to I think apply in an everyday type of. And
I do. And I think if you start applying that, then you'll have better days. You'll feel better. I feel like people who are nice are happier. Like, like who wants to not? Why do you want to be mean and mad for or angry? Like,
it's all connected back to death. Just wake up every morning saying, what if I wasn't going to wake up today?
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Be thankful you get to, breathe and wake up and go to that crappy job or go, whatever you got to do. Like, you're alive today. Like, you.
Damn right.
You did it.
Damn right. Well, we just put another episode into our own legacy right here. Talking about death and dying. Another thing done.
Keep it going.
Slam dunk.
Love it.
I love it. Thank you for being here and doing this with me. It's a lot of fun.
Anytime.
I love talking like this,
here.
sharing our open conversations.
That's great, and I love, and you're going to leave behind an amazing legacy.
So are you.
I'm here for it.
Thank you. I think we all will.
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
The good ones, I hope do.
I do too. Yeah. And the bad ones too. They're lessons.
They're rather a lesson or a blessing, baby.
Cheers to blessings.
Cheers to next time. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you want us to talk about, what you want to hear more about, and tune in next week. Mwah.
Bye.